This is the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. And it's got a carbon fiber plate and 2 high-end race foams. But I think this just might be a case of less would have been more. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kofuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today, I'm gonna talk to you guys all about the Saucony Endorphin Pro version 4. But before I do, I wanna go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that I bought myself. No one sent it to me or is paying me to make this video or to include their shoe in this video. And no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Endorphin Pro 4 and let's start with the specs. This is a 39.5 millimeter stack height shoe with an 8 millimeter drop, giving us 31.5 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot. And the midsole is comprised of 3 materials. One is a bottom layer of Power Run PB. That's one of Saucony's high-end racing foams. It's a beaded Pebax material that we've seen also in the Endorphin Speed 4. And then on top of that is a carbon fiber plate, a full-length carbon fiber plate. And then the top layer is going to be Power Run HG, which is the other high-end racing foam that Saucony has created. And I believe that the HG stands for Holy Grail. On the outsole, we have a large amount of rubber coverage. I absolutely love this cross-hatch design that they have for the forefoot. It gives plenty of rubber coverage, but there's also some exposed foam and a window into the carbon fiber plate, and then a couple of patches of rubber for both sides of the heel. Moving to the upper, we have a material that is very similar to what we saw last year in the Endorphin Pro 3. The kind of holes of the mesh are a little bit bigger this year compared to last year. And then as we move into the heel cup, there's a couple of very subtle cosmetic differences, but largely structurally, it's the same heel cup that we saw last year, the same amount of padding in the heel cup as well. And the only real change to the upper this year is the tongue. Last year, we had this really wild 3-hole cut design in the tongue, which also was a very short tongue. This year, they've gone the exact opposite way and made an integrated knit tongue, which also has an extra long flap up top, which then can be either folded over or extended even taller in case you are the type that gets a little bit of chafing at the top of the tongue during your long runs. Altogether, this year's Endorphin Pro comes in a little bit heavier than last year at 7.5 ounces or 212 grams. Now that we've talked about the paper specs, let's talk about what it's like when the rubber hits the road. I'll say the Endorphin Pro 4 is very similar to the Endorphin Pro 3. The experience is overall a bit smoother, and I think that's exactly what Saucony was going for when they made the Endorphin Pro 4. They tell us that it's going to be a snappy and responsive, yet smooth and efficient shoe, and I think that's a really good way of describing what I'm feeling in the shoe. One of the things that I notice is that they've pretty much extended the shoe, even though I still have the same running shoe size in both the 4 and the 3. The 4 is just a little bit longer. It feels like everything's been extended out, and I feel like that elongation of the shoe, that's what's making the shoe feels like it's rolling just a little bit more smoothly. And I think overall, it's a very exciting shoe to be able to try to run fast in. I feel like the Power Run PB has that signature beaded Peba squish and bounce to it. But overall, I find that I want just a little bit more pop out of the entire experience. And I think it's partially because of the elongation of the shoe, the widening of the shoe through the middle of the foot, and the decrease in the speed roll angle. But also I feel like that top layer of Power Run HG is kind of muting the overall experience. Now, when I heard that they were going to introduce Power Run HG, a foam that I absolutely loved in the Endorphin Elite, I was very excited, and I was hoping that it would do kind of 2 things, that it would make the shoe lighter and that it would control the bounce of the Power Run PB just a little bit more. And I do feel like it made the shoe lighter. I feel like even though it's gained weight overall compared to last year, the addition of that knit tongue, in addition to the fact that there's just more foam overall, I think in terms of volume of the shoe, I do think that the Power Run HG helps keep the shoe from being even heavier than it might otherwise have been. But I don't think that I'm getting kind of the enhancement of the response of the foam from the Power Run HG that I was quite hoping for and expecting. Instead, I just feel like my foot is kind of hitting the ground and that energy is just kind of dissipating away. Like the Power Run HG foam is just kind of eating it all instead of bouncing back and giving me a springy response. It's kind of like the Endorphin Pro 4 is like the Endorphin Pro 3, but numbed up on Novocaine. But I think that that subtle difference is just a sign of how good it is to be a runner right now, that I can be this nitpicky about very fine, minute details about the running experience in these shoes, because we have a wide variety of really excellent shoes to choose from. And I feel like the Endorphin Pro 4, as much as I feel like it's kind of not delivering exactly what my expectations were, my expectations for this shoe were really high. And at the end of the day, this shoe is still going to be one of the most recommendable carbon plated racing shoes of the market in 2024, just like the Endorphin Pro 3 was a shoe that I found myself recommending to the widest array of runners, skill levels, and paces because of the way that I found that that shoe was really approachable. I feel like the Endorphin Pro 4 is not only approachable, but it also performs really well too. So it's gonna continue to be a shoe that I recommend frequently. Now let's get to the end portion of the video where we're talking about some of the pairing options if you want to build a rotation around the Endorphin Pro 4 as your race shoe, and we'll also talk about some potential alternatives when we get to the buying guide. Now, in terms of pairing options, if you're going to be using the Endorphin Pro 4 as your race shoe, there's a couple of shoes that just make sense and we could do it all in the Saucony family. There is the training companion to the Endorphin Pro 4, and that's the Endorphin Speed 4. It's using Power Run PB and only Power Run PB and a nylon plate. And I feel like this is a very fun shoe that has an upper that is built for more wear and tear of your daily training. So this is a shoe that you can use for not only light workouts, but also for a lot of easy daily training running as well. And then for those days where you have maybe long, slow distance or want just a little bit more comfort, you can also look at Saucony for the Triumph. I have the RFG version, which is a little bit more eco-friendly, but this is a tall stack height shoe that has plenty of comfort and a little bit of a hint of stability to take care of you for those recovery runs or those long, slow distance days. Now, let's talk about the buying guide. The Saucony Endorphin Pro 4 comes in at $225, which is the same price as last year. Last year, I felt like it was a bargain at $225, and I'm gonna say that I still think it's a really great bargain. I feel like if Saucony had bumped up the price to $250 with the inclusion of the Power Run HG, no one would have blinked an eye. So I appreciate that they've kept the price the same at $225. That being said, let's talk about some of the alternatives on the market that I think are performing similarly to the Endorphin Pro 4 and see what those prices are. The number one competition to the Endorphin Pro 4 is the shoe that I think I might prefer to the Endorphin Pro 4, and that's going to be the Endorphin Pro 3. I absolutely loved running races and workouts in this shoe, and it just gives me that extra pop that I'm really enjoying. It's a little bit narrower through the midfoot, and there isn't as much of a bulbous flare on the sides of the heel in the Endorphin Pro 3, so it's not quite as stable as the latest version, but I don't really need or want that much stability in my racing shoes, and I really love the aggressive speed roll that's in the Endorphin Pro 3. And this shoe is still retailing right now at the full $225 price, but I feel like both of these shoes are good options even at that full price. But since the Endorphin Pro 3 has been out for so long, hopefully you'll be able to find it at a little bit of a discount at a trusted retailer near you. Now, the other shoe that I think that is worth discussing when talking about the Endorphin Pro 4 is another beaded Pebax midsole shoe that has a carbon fiber plate, and that's from Tier. This is the Tier Valkyrie Elite Carbon. This is a shoe that's actually closer to what I was expecting from the Endorphin Pro 4. It has a beaded Pebax foam, which makes it sound a lot like the Endorphin Pro 3, but it has a footprint and geometry that looks a lot like the Endorphin Elite, and it kind of sits in the middle between those two shoes, even though there isn't any sort of Power Run HG type foam in this shoe. So I feel like this is doing a better job of bridging the gap between the Endorphin Pro 3 and the Endorphin Elite than the Endorphin Pro 4 is doing. But then again, it might not necessarily be Saucony's intention to bridge the gap. Instead, they may be intending that the Endorphin Pro stays very different than the Endorphin Elite. So depending on what you're really looking for, that's going to determine which of these shoes is the right one for you. The Tier Valkyrie Elite Carbon comes in at $250, so you are paying $25 more to get to that shoe, but I do think that is a fair price for what you're getting over there. So those are my thoughts on the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to talk to you guys over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?